installment of me reading the unfinished Memoirs by Bengal Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Mujib went to London for consultations with Hussein Shorawardi, who was there for medical treatment. On December 5th, Shorawardi died in Beirut, Lebanon. 1964. The Awami League was reactivated on January 25th at a meeting held in Mujib's residence. The meeting adopted a resolution to demand the introduction of parliamentary democracy on the basis of adult franchise in response to public sentiment. The meeting elected Maulana Abdul Rashid Tarkabadis as party president and Mujib as general secretary. On the 11th of May, an all-party action committee was formed. Mujib led a committee to defuse communal riots. After the riots, he launched a vigorous anti-Ayyub movement on behalf of his party. Mujib was arrested 14 days before the presidential election. 1965. The government charged Mujib with sedition and for making objectionable statements. He was sentenced to 1 year imprisonment. He was later released by an order of the High Court. 1966. On the 5th of February, a national conference of the opposition parties was held in Lahore. Mujib placed his historic 6-point program before the select committee of the conference. The 6-point demand was the charter of freedom of the Bengali nation. On the 1st of March, Mujib was elected the president of the Awami League. Following his election, he launched a campaign to obtain support for the 6-point demand. He traveled around the country. Police arrested and detained him several times in Sylhet, Mymensingh, and Dhaka during his campaign. In all, he was arrested 8 times in the first quarter of the year. Imagine being arrested 8 times in 90 days. You can't even do that many community violations on YouTube in that span. On the 8th of May, he was arrested after a speech at a rally of jute mill workers in Narayanganj. A countrywide hartal, which is protest, was observed on the 7th of June to force the government to release Mujib and other political prisoners. Police opened fire on picketers during the hartal and killed a number of workers in Dhaka, Narayanganj, and Tongi. 1968. The Pakistani government filed the infamous Agartala conspiracy case against Mujib and 34 Bengali civil and military officers. He was named as accused number 1 in the case. The arrested persons were charged with conspiring for the secession of East Pakistan from the rest of Pakistan. The accused were detained inside Dhaka cantonment. Demonstrations took place throughout the province, demanding the release of Mujib and the other co-accused in the Agartala conspiracy case. The trial began on the 19th of June in Dhaka cantonment amidst tight security. 1969. The Central Students Action Council was formed on the 5th of January to press for the acceptance of the 11-point program, which included the 6-point demand. The council initiated a countrywide student agitation to compel the government to withdraw the Agartala conspiracy case and free Mujib. The agitation was gradually transformed into a mass movement. After months of protests, the government imposed a ban on meetings and processions under Section 144 and resorted to curfews and indiscriminate shooting by the police and the East Pakistan Rifles. Such actions led to a number of casualties, while the movement itself peaked in an unprecedented mass upsurge that forced Ayub Khan to convene a roundtable conference of political leaders and nailed Mujib's release on parole. Mujib rejected the offer of release on parole. On February 22, the Pakistan government submitted to the continued mass protests and freed Mujib and the other co-accused. The conspiracy case was withdrawn. The Central Student Action Council arranged a reception in honor of Mujib on 23 February at the Racecourse Green. 1 million people attended the meeting. Mujib was publicly declared as Bongo in the meeting. In his speech on the occasion, he pledged his wholehearted support to the 11-point demand of the students. and said, "To end people's anger, there is no other alternative to the acceptance of the 6-point and 11-point demand in the granting of regional autonomy." When the Pakistani politician and ruler discarded his demand, he left the conference on 13th of March and returned to Dhaka the next day. On the 25th of March, General Yahya Khan took over and imposed martial law. On the 25th of October, Mujib went to London on a 3-week organizational tour. At a discussion meeting held on the 5th of December to observe the death anniversary of Hussein Shahid Shorawardhi, Mujib declared that henceforth East Pakistan would be called Bangladesh. He added, "There was a time when evil efforts were made to wipe out the word Bangla from our land and map. The existence of the word Bangla was found nowhere except in the Bay of Bengal. I, on behalf of the people, proclaim today that the eastern province of Pakistan will be called Bangladesh instead of East